everyone. I can't see any of you. So when they told us we could pretty much wear whatever we want to this. So I think that pretty much sets up my aesthetic well, that I chose a dress that looks like I'm the secretary of the Super Mario Brothers. So that's sums me up. I actually went as Luigi for Halloween. My sister was Mario. Our dad is an Italian plumber, so we wanted to keep it like in the fam for this, for this Halloween. And on that Halloween, I got an allergic reaction for the first time in 5 years. And you know, like when your teachers scold you and they're like, make sure you check your candy because for like razors and things you're allergic to. Yeah, I've gotten that speech for like 13 years. It's like, yeah, whatever. And it was fine until I was in like a dark basement in Austin at a party, not by myself. Like a little weird, and I ate what I thought was the Three Musketeers and ended up being a Snickers, and I just like, my mouth filled with death, and I was just like going into anaphylactic shock, like in the middle of this like bumpin' like DJ set. So my first reaction is to gargle a beer. That doesn't work. I'm like, maybe it'll cleanse it, no. So I next step, I ask a very nice fighter pilot who owned the house and he like drunkenly pulls up Apple Maps and like shows me where the nearest CVS is. So me and my sister start running down the street as my throat is closing, and I forgot that like we were in full mustaches and full, and like I don't know. I kept like rubbing my face. Do people who have mustaches forget that they have them sometimes? And they're like, what's this on my face? It's like I've never experienced that issue before. Until that day. So we're running down the street and people are rolling down their windows and they're like, Mario, where's Yoshi? And I'm like, I'm dying. We got to the CVS and I run in and I'm like, Benadryl, I need Benadryl. And the guy's like taking his sweet time, like scanning the Advils and cigarettes on the bottom. I could see the box and I'm like, give it to me. And he goes, no. There's an $8 minimum for debit cards. And I immediately, because I was just so just scrambled, I couldn't think of like things that added to $7, so I could just buy it and leave. So I get a bag of large luxury grapes, and then me and my sister become the people at the party that just start handing people washed grapes with their Jell-O shots, which was, I feel like, a nice identity, bringing some health into the party scene. Very important. So when I'm not doing this, I am a barista. I love feeding into that writer-barista stereotype. I feel like if you acknowledge stereotypes, it makes it a little better. But really, I just love free croissants. There's this one old lady who comes in, and I hate her, and I won't wait on her. And I feel like I'm pretty justified. She, just to give you an image, she wears, only khaki pantsuits that zip up past her belly button, and her face looks like a wilted jack-o'-lantern. Yeah. So I hate her because one time I was going into the bathroom before my break, and she exited the stall and she looked in my eyes with the most wicked, sinister expression, and I just knew her face just said, whatever is in there, I'm glad that it's your job to clean it up. And so I open the door, I push it open, and there's just pee all over the floor. Just not even she did not even try to aim. And I'm like, I don't know, this lady's 80-something. She's probably used the bathroom 500,000 times in her life. She probably has a good gauge of being able, and she was in pants. So that means she must have just literally been not today, too cold, not comfortable. I'm gonna pee on this floor, it's my territory now, bitch. Make me another cappuccino. And then she stayed in the cafe for the next 2 hours just looking over at me and smoking and sipping her little espresso, so I won't wait on her anymore. I feel like as a kid you have to have a lot of really awkward conversations. One of those is when your parents explain to you what sex is. My mom did that with a cartoon book about birds, because nothing makes that conversation less awkward, cartoons, and just my mom telling me about what penises were, because I really needed to be informed in my life, I guess. And so when she was going to give me this conversation, I had no idea, and I was supposed to be doing homework, but I was playing my DS because I thought I was a slick little kid. I'm instead of learning fractions, I'm just gonna tend to my crops on Animal Crossing and fail. And she comes in, she just bestows like the wisdom of life and adult relationships onto my 10-year-old brain. And I'm just like kind of floored by it. And then I forget that I had been like neglecting my homework. And when she got up, the blanket moved and my DS fell on the floor. And I'm like, oh, I've been caught. And she looks down and she just kind of laughs and she goes, at least it wasn't a condom. Dinner will be ready in 10. And she closes the door. And I'm like, my mom was way too like willing to accept the fact that I was just pulling in the 5th grade. Like, I mean, my mom really believes in me. She's always encouraged me to follow my dreams, so I think that's really important for an art student. Then when I was 16, I decided to, take control of my body as a woman and get control of birth at Planned Parenthood. What a lot of scary words in that sentence. So I went by myself, and in the waiting room when I walked in, there were these like 2 guys that were like leaning back in their chairs, high-fiving every couple minutes for no reason whatsoever. They own the vibe of the room. I'm like, I don't know where you think you are, but they were rocking it. And then there was like a 13-year-old boy and his mom who was like crinkling a mint in her purse, and she just looked like she'd never missed a sale at Macy's like in her life. Like, we're all waiting for these open appointments, and the Planned Parenthood employees are so into it. They keep playing all these, like, Jeopardy-style games about how not to contract hepatitis. And, like, everyone in the waiting room is just kind of, like, just chilling. But the employee, like, gestures to this bucket of condoms, and he's like, here, these are for you. You take them, be safe. We are offering them to you free of charge. And this man comes up in the front row, and he, like, takes the entire bucket of condoms and shakes the whole thing into his backpack as his friend is like behind him clapping like, that's my boy! And I was like, damn, I really need someone in my life that just cheers like that after I do everything. Like, yeah! You did it! And I was really proud of him because like, I guess he was just taking extra precaution, like 30 condoms for the one time a woman would touch him. Really, I'm proud of him. But, so the Planned Parenthood sees that the employee sees that the bucket is empty. They kind of like side-eye us and then like go back, refill it. So then the 13-year-old boy comes up and he just takes handfuls, like shoves them in his like Gap hoodie, swaggers back. And his mom does not look up from her Sudoku. And she's just like, wow, you think you're slick? You think you're so cool? Why don't you tell everyone while you're here? And he just kind of mumbles through his braces incoherently. He's like, Mom. And she goes, wow, maybe you wouldn't need all those condoms if you weren't here to be tested for chlamydia. And I was like, that's the coolest mom ever. Like, instead, she found out that her 13-year-old kid was having unprotected sex instead of like freaking out and just ignoring it. She's like, no. You're gonna come with me to this doctor's office. You're gonna pee in a cup. You're gonna look at a chart and face your mistakes. And I think that's mom goals, honestly. When I was younger, I was embarrassed about a lot of things. I was always afraid my hands would be like too sweaty because like I had this image of if a boy liked me and he was just caught up in the throes of young romance, he'd like grab my hand, and if it was like sweaty, he would just throw it away and be like, "Oh, you creature," and like throw things at me. So I was really afraid of that. But like just generally, like I don't know, bodies are weird. We're all meat puppets. So I was just like uncomfortable about things about my body. So one time I was at my friend's house for a sleepover, as 12-year-old girls do. And we were like drawing with chalk on the sidewalk like Disney characters. We haven't been like just broken by the grips of misogyny yet, so we're just having a great time. And I just, feel like I have to do my business. I go inside and like her family's like gathered around the living room watching Family Feud, probably eating like plates of cheese and crackers. I don't know what families do. And they kind of look at me and make small talk, and I see that the door of the bathroom is next to the living room, and that they not only like, will they know that whatever happens in there is my doing, but they'll have to watch me leave. So I go in and I'm like, this is not gonna be eloquent and silent by any means. I knew my own strength at that point. So I'm like reading the soap opera magazines that they had like provided next to the toilet, and I decide that it's less embarrassing if they hear me singing in the bathroom than if they hear me like loudly pooping. So I go into an entire rendition of Don't Stop Believing with an added verse and chorus just because I was like, not done yet, I'll give him one more. And I was making eye contact with myself in the bathroom mirror the entire time, like, yep, that's the decision you're making, like belting, straight out, no smile, just deadpan. And it worked, like they didn't hear me, but I was never invited back to that friend's house ever again. So yeah, that was like my most embarrassing story for a really long time. That was when I would like take my friends into like a corner and be like, all right, this is my deepest, darkest secret, and you're just gonna laugh at it. But until this summer, when something really embarrassing happened to me, but honestly, it's more like one of my worst fears. Like, my worst fear used to be the idea of bugs crawling up my vagina. Like, it just really scared me. Like, I would sleep with my knees locked just because I thought that would protect me for years. But then, like, as I got older, I just, like, I don't know, I've had worse things up there at that point. And people. But honestly, vaginas are pretty indestructible. So I got over it pretty quickly. But my current worst fear stemmed from me and my friend this summer. We were walking behind her house. There's like this like lake and like path, classic, like a little Disney looking landscape. You know, suburbia. And it was wet, so I borrowed her, and like the ground was muddy, so I borrowed her dad's size 14 Crocs, but I like put the safety straps on, so I was like, you know, safe and ready to go. We're walking, and I feel something on the back of my foot, and I'm like, oh, like I must have stepped in a puddle, and I'm like, no, I stepped in poop. That's what happened. That's what I have done to myself. So I'm like walking, and I decide that I don't want to know, and I don't want to look, and I would rather just like walk and live in ignorance and then like kick it off and like never think about it again. So I don't look down. I'm really adamant about it for like 20 minutes of walking. And finally, like I feel something really weird. So I kick off the Croc in the middle, and it falls in the middle of the path, and a frog had shimmied its way under the safety strap into the shoe, and I had been stepping on it for the past 20 minutes without even knowing. And like, I don't know, I'd like to think in my life I've been pretty nice to animals. Like, I might have said once that like animals shouldn't be tested on. Like, I don't think I've done anything about it, but I probably said it and thought it because I'm a good person. And like, I just murdered this animal without even knowing, with my bare foot just like strolling on, talking about like, I don't know, math, like what do people talk about? So I'm like looking in horror at what I'd just done, and my friend like looks and she goes, oh, Nicole, you silly goose, got a leaf in your shoe. I'm like, no, that is no leaf. Look at its legs. And the legs were like fanned over the side, like I like just was like a big cartoon giant, and I crushed it. And my friend just looks at me and she goes, Nicole, that was flat. And I was so traumatized by the fact that I just murdered this frog that I just kick off the other Croc and I run off and I try not to think about it. And 3 months later, the story does not end. You know, we were walking along that same path, and like leaves were crusted over to show that time had passed. And I saw the Croc, but the frog was gone. There was no like decrepit frog like skeleton, or like I don't know why I thought that would be there, but there were no like, it didn't look like an empty pirate ship. So I was like, maybe the frog lived, maybe it like reflated and then hopped off and like found like a frog wife and had a bunch of frog kids, and now it like tours frog colleges and gives like inspirational speeches about overcoming adversity that you can't control. And like maybe I started this like surge of frog empowerment. Now they all like carry signs and burn their bras, but like more realistically, some kind of like wild coyote or like bear, I don't know what eats frogs, I'm not really familiar with the food chain, came along and took it. But either way, that is my worst fear. Thank you so much.
George and I have been trying to have a kid for years, but nothing had been working for us.
We'd always want our own little bundle of joy, but it just wasn't in the cards.
That's because George's swimmers aren't the fastest.
Deborah!
We finally settled on the idea to adopt, but we had no clue where to start. There are so many forms and they're just so confusing to fill out.
That's when we heard about this new app called Adopter, and knew it was the right choice for us.
To make a profile, all you have to do is write a little description of yourself and put up some pictures of you and your partner.
When you find a child that you think might be a good fit for your family, you swipe right and wait and see if you're a match.
Once you match, the real fun begins.
Anne and I had been trying to adopt for the longest time.
We didn't think we'd get our perfect kid until we downloaded Adopter.
At first, we were confused by all of the different pictures with kids holding giant fish.
We knew we wanted a kid like no other, but didn't like any of the ones near us.
For just $1 extra, we were able to see not only the kids in our zip code, but all over the world with Adopter Premium.
That's how we found our little Terumi. She brings us so much joy. Thanks, Adopter.
We weren't sure exactly what kind of kid we wanted. I mean, there are just so many different types.
That's what's so great about Adopter. We just spent one night with a bunch of the kids and didn't have to commit to anything.
Luckily, we were able to find our bright, shining star, Timothy, with this app.
We were even able to super like him, to let him know we were especially interested in adding him to our family.
Oh, George, I think that's him. Will you get the door?
Yes, dear. Who are you?
Daddy!
What?
I'm Timothy, your new little boy! Mommy!
Oh God! You are not our Timothy. You look nothing like your profile. You're not even a boy.
That's okay. I can't wait to live here. Do I get my own room?
I'm calling the police.
You need to leave right now.
But you super liked me. You wanted me here with you. I want to eat all of your chips and dip and wear matching pajamas.
Just what I thought. Another catfish on the top.
No!
You're coming with me.
No! These are my mommy and daddy!
No, hurry.
Yeah. You wanna try swiping some more?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Opening up the book, just gonna do some bits, gonna do some stuff. We all feel good in here, right? Okay. This room feels like if a little boy dressed in Roman armor came out and just stabbed me in the heart. Like, this is the only space on campus where you all would be like, based on this Coliseum seating, that feels like that should happen in here. Man, someone get him help. He's bleeding out on the ground. A little boy stabbed him in the heart. Yikes. Okay. I'm gonna start in a second, I swear, but it's just, I'm getting a little warm. I didn't open my water before I came out here. Might do that, might not. I have no idea. While I'm thinking about it, I do want to talk to you guys. I just got a new apartment. I'm actually renting a house. I've never rented a house before. Maybe some of you have. It's a very daunting experience when you rent a house. I live in East Boston, if anybody's out there, and it is terrifying. Not for any real reason. It's only because of this man who lives next door to me. East Boston's one of those interesting places where it has a lot of people have moved there over time. In the 90s, a lot of Hispanic families moved there. But before that, it was just OG Boston people. And this man who lives next door to us is of that ilk. He's this sort of like large, burly gentleman with this sort of chaotic beard. And he has around 20 to 85 cats that live in his backyard. And they're all gray. They look like water monitors almost. They're low to the ground and they just sort of like stick their tongues out to smell the air. And once a day he takes a water buffalo shank and just throws it into his backyard. And we're all terrified. And so we'll see this man sometimes. There's a gate between our yard and his, and he'll just show up in our yard and he'll spray the shed with a mystery fluid. You can use your imagination as to what he's exactly doing. All I know is that most Sundays I wake up to a man in my yard. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get emotional. This water bottle. No, I mean, I like living in East Boston. We have a horrible skunk problem. That is really true. If anybody's connected with the governor, it's bad. I walk home most days late at night just going, I'm here in the middle of the road. Don't spray me. Like, literally like an asshole. If that man next door to me wanted to kill me, all he'd have to do is send a little boy to come and stab me in the heart. It's literally bad. I announce my presence every time I'm home. It's awful. I don't know. Most of us, I think, are in college. Maybe some of us aren't. But I feel like right now, I feel like I'm spending so much time just trying to figure myself out. This apartment thing has been kind of one of those where I'm trying to figure myself out. There are certain things that I've learned over the past, 3 years or so that are very real. I have a problem with forms. I figured this out recently. I have a problem with forms. If I'm in, a doctor's office, I'll fill the form out and have it say that I'm 5'3" and platinum blonde. And then when the doctor comes in, I'm literally just like, I don't know what's happening. And then I just run in tears out through the lobby. I can't do it. I don't want to be on the record. You know what I mean? I have that just enough where forms bother me, but doing a comedy show doesn't seem to bother me in the slightest. I don't know what it is. There are other things too where I've figured out that there are certain things that I'm not gonna learn. Like IBM. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. Do you ever have that thing where you go to a friend's house and it's a weird friend that you don't really know, and you walk into their house and you go this kitchen is the size of my house. Their home is just too big, and when you start to ask questions about it, somebody just shows up to be like, oh yeah, they worked for IBM in the 80s, and just sort of as if that's ever an answer at all. Just to be yeah, no, 3 letters and money. Is it phones? Is it phones? Can I ask that? Is it phones? I don't want to know. I don't want to know if it's phones. I don't want to know if it's phones. No, I don't know if you guys can tell based on my cadence or general appearance, but I'm pretty sure that I'm supposed to be a bumpkin. Oh my God. I really am. I'm pretty sure that I wasn't supposed to make it, you know? I'm from a really small town in Maryland. There's some of these are in New Jersey too. Just one of those black hole towns, you know? You know when you hear about somebody disappearing? They're just gone. They're in my town. That's that kind of. We lived right on the Chesapeake Bay. It was all swampy. You'd see people dark figures during sunset just sort of stomping through the marshes, and we'd all just kind of be like, that's human behavior. That's normal activities. And it's weird. All of my friends from home I've known since preschool. I grew up with all of them. We were in Miss Zimmerman's preschool class. We were all together. There was 8 of us, and we were all straight dudes. And we were, I don't think they'll mind me saying this, but we were in love with each other. I mean, we really were, we really are. I mean, when I go home, I see them, they're my 7 best friends, and we're all just these horribly, horribly straight guys. And we would play games. We started coming up with games, because we were insane. And one of those games was called, There's a Cat in the Bed. And the way Cat in the Bed is played is we would go over to my friend Caleb's house, and we would open up his pull-out couch, and we would turn the lights off, and then we would run around on the pull-out couch and try and find each other. No sight, just your hands and knowing the body shapes of your friends. That's all it was, for hours. We called our group the Cats in the Bed. People called us the Cats. We had a den, we had group chats, it was bad. Conversely, we had another game. They're gonna bleep this. It's gonna be bad. But we had a game called Bum to the Rim 2K13. And this game was basically full contact pool basketball. That was the whole thing. We just get in a pool, and at a certain point, Scott Toms would have to go to the hospital because I would have knocked one of his teeth out. That's the only way, and that really is one of those crazy things where you're, that is the confines of masculinity. You can't tell your friends that you care about them. The most you can do is try and knock one of their teeth out. That's the peak, you know what I mean, in that situation. It's bad. But that's what passes for fun in my weird little swampy town. I don't mean to double back on myself, but there was a dad in my home recently, and I feel like I have to talk about it. Do you ever have that? Where there's just a dad in your home? You know what I'm talking about? It adds a second layer to your perception of reality. All of a sudden, there's a vortex somewhere inside of your home. Someone else's dad is there, and you can just feel yourself kind of being like, oh no, I'm getting pulled in to this dad in my home. And this particular dad really wanted to smoke weed with us. I don't know if you guys have smoked weed with your dads. Maybe some of you have. I don't know. My dad is a 6'7" doctor from the Dominican Republic who doesn't believe in using baskets at the grocery store, so he carries everything like an asshole. It's crazy. I don't want to smoke weed with that guy at all. The whole time he'd just be like, I don't need one. I don't need a cart. And I'm like, what's happening? It's a nightmare. I'm gonna wrap up here in just a second. This last thing, it's really not even comedy. Show of hands, does anyone have, this is gonna be a little weird. Show of hands, does anyone have a vegan child at home? Anyone have a vegan child? Anybody have a vegan child at their house? No? Okay. Well, maybe, I thought there would be a lot more 40 to 50-year-old parents in the audience. Maybe if you're planning on having a vegan child, these will be some tips. Basically what I did was I compiled a list of the ways in which I think vegan children could die. And these are just sort of like, prohibitory, whatever, just something to look out for. If you have a vegan child, these are probably the ways they'll die. I just keep an eye out. They're an interesting band of children. So I'm gonna run down this list. Just, if you need to take notes or if you want me to stop at a certain point, just yell out. I can do that. It's no problem, okay? All right, so we're gonna go through this list. All right, number one. Okay, number one. Biodiesel explosion. You're pulling around behind a McDonald's, you drop a match, the whole thing goes up, yada, yada, yada. It's not good. It's hard to explain. Number two, strangled to death by a big old beard. A vegan child is probably per day around at least 6 or 7 beards, and they are all as dangerous as the last one. So please keep your eyes out, all right? Number three, murdered. And this really applies. This applies to anyone. Look, any of us could be murdered today. Probably not, I don't think so, but it's real. Okay, number four. Tackled by acai activists. Those people are passionate and they're fast, all right? So they stay low, so you gotta stay looking down. Now, this one is just poisoned by ostrich. And I understand it's a little confusing. It's taken in 2 ways. Number one, your kid's getting a little wild. They want to experiment and they try some ostrich meat. But it's bad ostrich meat and they die. That's one. Number two is that your child has somehow wronged an ostrich. And you walk back into a room and see an ostrich wearing sunglasses, pouring a pink liquid into your son's chamomile tea, and a smoke cloud shaped like a skull and crossbones comes out of it. Red flag. This is a red flag. Let's see, Dreamcatcher tattoo infection. That one's really straightforward. This one just says crushed by the mosh. Probably like a Frankie Cosmos concert or like Courtney Barnett. Just something where no one should be moshing. It just seems like the most likely way a kid could go. Hit by a grown man on a razor scooter. This should be a grown person on a razor scooter. Suddenly that's okay to have a razor scooter. It's socially acceptable for us all to like zoom around like we're not 8. It's bullshit. Okay. Let's see, fear of failure? Yeah, it's real. It's real. Culture shock, like if your vegan child meets like a meat scientist or something. I don't know. You just meet someone who's not like him and he freaks out. Being caught in a web of lies. Being caught in a web of lies created by their non-friend Pulse. Being caught while the chips are down. Being caught while the chips are down because their non-friend Pulse put the chips down there, and their non-friend Pulse is an asshole. And I realize that this list goes a little off the rails, but trust me, it's coming back home. The last thing written on it is just the word skulls. Thank you guys so much for listening to all that, listening to me. Enjoy the rest of your comedians here.